This is Chicago, a city of bold architecture, deep dish pizza, and a mirrored bean so big it reflects the skyline. But what most people don't realize is that Chicago is actually one of the best designed cities in the world. For the past 9 years, it has consistently ranked among the top examples of urban planning and design on the planet. But it wasn't always this way. In 1871, the Great Fire tore through the city, leaving more than 100,000 people without homes. And a century later came the industrial collapse. Factories closed, jobs vanished, and entire districts fell into decay. Yet every time, Chicago has refused to stay down. So how did this city manage to rebuild itself not once, but twice, and even remain the best designed city in the world? To find out, we're going to look at how Chicago rose from disaster, the ideas that shaped its design, and the choices keeping it ahead of the curve today. Chicago was a city built on ambition long before steel touched the sky. Its position between the Great Lakes and the Mississippi made it a perfect crossroads for trade and travel. Long before skyscrapers or canals, the land was home to the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi tribes who used its rivers and wetlands to move goods across the region. When French explorers arrived in the 17th century, they saw the same thing the tribes had known for centuries. The land was built for connection. In the 1770s, Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable built the first permanent settlement at the mouth of the Chicago River. His small trading post became the seed for a city that would soon connect the east to the expanding west. By the early 1800s, Fort Dearborn rose along the lakefront, drawing more settlers and trade. The town officially became a city in 1837, and by mid-century, it was growing faster than almost anywhere in the country. Infrastructure fueled that rise. The Illinois and Michigan Canal linked the Great Lakes to the Mississippi River, and railroads soon turned Chicago into the center of America's transportation web. Grain, steel, and meatpacking powered its economy, and within decades, the city had become the industrial heart of the Midwest. Then came the Great Fire. In 1871, flames tore through miles of homes and businesses, leaving 100,000 people without shelter. What could have ended Chicago instead forced it to rebuild with purpose. Engineers lifted streets out of floodplains. Architects replaced wood with steel and invented the skyscraper. Within 20 years, the city had transformed into a showcase of modern engineering and design. That momentum only grew. The 1909 Burnham Plan introduced the first comprehensive vision for an American city, blending beauty and function into every detail. Parks, boulevards, and a protected lakefront reshaped daily life and set a new global standard for urban planning. Through the 20th century, Chicago faced its share of challenges. Industrial collapse and population loss hit hard, but each setback was met with reinvention. The city adapted its systems, reimagined its neighborhoods, and stayed committed to design that worked for the people. And by the time the new century arrived, the very principles that once rebuilt Chicago had become its foundation. Choices made for resilience turned into habits of precision. Those choices set the stage for the thoughtful design that defines the city today. 1. Walkability and pedestrian focus. Chicago moves at the speed of people. In neighborhoods like Lincoln Park, West Loop, and Wicker Park, the layout feels deliberate. Sidewalks stay wide. Crosswalks stretch clean across intersections, and bike lanes trace steady lines through the grid. Each street fits neatly into the next, creating a rhythm that feels natural to walk. City planners built this experience from the ground up. Vision Zero set the goal of ending traffic deaths across the city. Crews reshaped intersections with raised curbs, protected corners, and shorter turning lanes. Within a few years, crashes in those redesigned areas dropped sharply, and you can even see it in the data and the daily routine. In the West Loop, people take fewer car trips than almost anywhere else in the country. Local shops stay active because more customers pass by on foot. And studies from the city found that walkable districts saw stronger business growth and higher property values over time. When walking feels simple and safe, a city starts to connect on its own. People meet without planning to. Neighborhoods build trust block by block. That sense of connection became the base for everything else. It shaped how Chicago built its next system of movement, the transit network that ties the entire city together. When walking feels simple and safe, a city starts to connect on its own. 2. Public transit integration. Chicago's rhythm depends on the system that moves its people. The Chicago Transit Authority, or CTA, runs a vast network of buses and trains that reach nearly every corner of the city. The elevated, L trains weave through the skyline, carrying millions each month between neighborhoods and the downtown loop. For many residents, the system means freedom from car ownership and direct access to jobs, schools, and daily life. The scale of this network is enormous. Across 8 train lines and over 200 bus routes, more than 5 million rides happen every month. A study from the University of Chicago's Harris School of Public Policy found that people living within a quarter mile of a CTA station can reach 60% more jobs within a 45-minute commute compared to those in car-dependent areas. The same study measured accessibility across all 77 community areas and showed how proximity to transit expands opportunity far beyond the city center. Equity sits at the core of this system. A survey by the Regional Transportation Authority in 2021 found that nearly 3/4 of CTA riders identify as minorities, and almost half have household income below $30,000. Many rely on transit to stay connected to work and essential services. When researchers from MIT and Argonne National Laboratory modeled the impact of removing public transit from Chicago's economy, they found it would erase more than 90,000 jobs and reduce regional GDP by over $15 billion each year. Accessibility has also become a priority. Through the All Stations Accessibility Program, the CTA is upgrading 93 of its 224 stations with elevators, tactile paving, and barrier-free boarding. The American Society of Civil Engineers reviewed these upgrades and found that the project will close nearly 80% of the accessibility gap between downtown and historically disinvested neighborhoods. For thousands of riders, these improvements mean the difference between being able to move independently and being shut out of the system entirely. And above the ground, another form of design took shape, one that defined how cities everywhere would reach for the sky. 3. Architectural innovation and density. Chicago's skyline tells the story of invention. Each tower that rises from the lakefront stands as proof of the city's drive to solve problems with design. From the first steel frame structures to today's glass towers, every generation of builders has used Chicago as a testing ground for new ideas. That system began in 1885 with the Home Insurance Building. Designed by engineer William LeBaron Jenney, it was the first structure in the world to use a steel skeleton. This single decision changed how cities would grow. Instead of stacking heavy masonry walls, builders could now create height through precision engineering. The Illinois Institute of Technology later studied those early designs and found they achieved up to 25% more usable floor space than comparable buildings in New York. Less weight, more space, and a stronger frame. Chicago had just invented the modern city. Architects carried that momentum forward. Firms like Adler and Sullivan and Burnham and Root shaped a movement known as the Chicago School of Architecture, where structure became the art itself. UNESCO now recognizes this period as the foundation of modern architecture worldwide. Later, when Ludwig Miles van der Rohe moved to Chicago in 1938, he refined that philosophy into the clean geometry that defines the international style. Today, nearly half of the world's tallest buildings use design principles that trace back to Chicago's early experiments in steel and form. The influence extends beyond the skyline. As density increased in neighborhoods like the West Loop, planners focused on making tall living feel human in scale. The University of Chicago's research on placemaking and memorable cities found that Chicago's mix of preserved history, active street life, and modern density keeps the neighborhoods livable even at 400 residents per acre. The city learned how to grow upward without losing touch with the ground. That balance between innovation and livability became Chicago's greatest strength. And as the city continued to build upward, it also learned how to build for everyone, setting the stage for its next chapter in inclusive and sustainable planning. 4. Inclusive and sustainable planning. Chicago's future is being built with its residents in the room. The We Will Chicago initiative redefined how the city plans by asking people from every neighborhood to help write the blueprint. More than 50,000 residents joined assemblies, focus groups, and digital meetings to shape over 400 citywide goals centered on equity, sustainability, and economic growth. The Metropolitan Planning Council studied this process and found that cities using community co-design see 67% higher satisfaction with outcomes. In Chicago, 78% of participants said they felt their voices were heard, a number rarely seen in traditional top-down planning. That sense of shared authorship changed the city's direction. When residents help set priorities, they become advocates for seeing them through. That's why many of the We Will Chicago goals have moved quickly into policy. Better access to green space, investment in small businesses, and expanded funding for public infrastructure in long underserved areas. The plan works because it's grounded in the lived experience of the people it serves. Regional planning followed the same philosophy. The Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning developed Go To 2040, a long-term strategy tying together transportation, housing, and environmental resilience across 7 counties. The agency's research showed that this regional focus slowed economic segregation. Between 2010 and 2020, the Diversity Index measuring income variation within neighborhoods grew 22%, while comparable metros saw declines. The plans focused on mixed-income housing near transit allowed families to stay in their communities as property values rose, instead of being pushed to the edges of the city. This balance between growth and inclusion gave Chicago a foundation for long-term resilience. It turned planning into collaboration, and collaboration into trust. That same mindset guided the next transformation, rethinking how streets themselves could carry people safely and sustainably through every neighborhood. 5. Bike infrastructure expansion. Chicago's streets are changing shape again, this time for cyclists. Over the past 4 years, bike ridership has more than doubled, a 119% jump that shows how fast the city's culture is shifting. To meet that demand, the Chicago Department of Transportation launched the Neighborhood Bike Networks Initiative, building 180 miles of new, low-stress routes. Protected lanes, greenways, and urban trails now stretch through every part of the city, connecting neighborhoods that once had no safe way to ride. This transformation is the largest investment in cycling infrastructure by any U.S. city. Data from the People for Bikes Great Bike Infrastructure Project found that Chicago's strategy works because it focuses on connection. Instead of scattered bike lanes that end abruptly, more than 80% of routes are linked in continuous networks. Riders can travel entire distances without merging into car traffic. The same study showed that connected systems like this create nearly 3 times more ridership than fragmented ones. Safety shaped every decision. Research by the Active Transportation Alliance revealed that on Chicago's west side, fatal bike crashes once occurred at rates 3 times higher than downtown. Many of those neighborhoods had no protected lanes at all. Between 2019 and 2024, the city added 82 miles of protected routes in those high-risk areas. Within a few years, fatalities on those corridors dropped 64%, while bike commuting in the same districts climbed by more than 150%. And that focus on resilience and adaptation would soon shape another breakthrough: how Chicago turned its fight against flooding into an engineering model for the world. 6. Green stormwater infrastructure innovation. Chicago's resilience comes from how it works with water. The city now manages rain the same way it manages traffic, by designing for flow. More than 100 green infrastructure projects capture up to 18 million gallons of stormwater during a single rain event. Bioswales, rain gardens, green roofs, and permeable alleys absorb water where it falls, easing the load on underground drains and protecting homes from floods. This shift began when engineers realized the old approach could no longer keep up. A landmark study by the Illinois EPA showed that traditional gray infrastructure handled rainfall only up to a 10-year storm, about 3 inches in a day. Anything heavier overwhelmed the system, sending sewage into rivers and streets. The findings pushed the city toward a new idea: manage water above ground using nature itself. The Green Alleys program became the model. Over 1,100 miles of alleys were rebuilt with permeable pavement that allows rain to soak through. The Metropolitan Planning Council compared these designs to standard asphalt and found they cut runoff by as much as 80%. During heavy storms, this network now prevents millions in flood damage each year while creating cooler, greener streets. Equity guided where these projects went first. Research from the Illinois Institute of Technology revealed that before 2015, most stormwater funding flowed to the north and riverfront areas, leaving south and west side neighborhoods exposed. The city changed that pattern. 74 of its first 100 green infrastructure sites were built in those high-risk areas. A report from the EPA's Region 5 office later found measurable benefits: lower surface temperatures, cleaner air, and a 14% drop in childhood asthma emergencies. And as the city learned to turn water into an ally, it was already preparing to face a new challenge below the skyline, beginning with a project so ambitious it would change the course of a river. 7. Chicago River Reversal Engineering Triumph. At the turn of the 20th century, Chicago faced a crisis. The river that powered its industry was also poisoning its people. Sewage and industrial waste flowed directly into Lake Michigan, the same source the city used for drinking water. Outbreaks of cholera and typhoid killed thousands each year, and the problem was growing with every new factory and home. City engineers responded with an idea few believed was possible: reverse the flow of the Chicago River. The project began in 1892 with excavation of the Sanitary and Ship Canal, a waterway 28 miles long and 200 feet wide. It was built to slope 3 feet per mile, allowing gravity to pull water away from the lake and toward the Illinois River. More than 5,000 workers spent 7 years carving through 43 million cubic yards of soil and rock. When the locks opened in 1900, the water began to move in the opposite direction. The results were immediate. Disease rates dropped by 80% within 2 years, and the city's water supply remained safe for generations. The Linda Hall Library's research on civil engineering credits this project with introducing a new kind of environmental thinking, solving problems by changing entire systems instead of treating symptoms. The river reversal remains one of the largest hydrological projects in U.S. history. The American Society of Civil Engineers still lists it among the 7 wonders of American engineering. More than a century later, the river continues to protect the city's water while supporting recreation and wildlife. It proved that engineering could be both practical and visionary, and that connection is what continues to define it as one of the best designed cities in the world. Chicago's story has always been about rebuilding. It's gone through fire, collapse, and reinvention, and every time it's come back stronger. What started as a small lakefront settlement became a global model for how design can shape the way people live. From its streets to its skyline, Chicago shows what happens when a city keeps learning from itself. And if you want to see what happens when a city doesn't, click here to watch the worst designed city in the world.